It's no secret that I've been a huge fan of Filip Zadina pretty much since his draft year. This is documented through many YouTube videos. I've talked about the 2018 NHL draft. Ever since the 2017-18 season, I was in my senior year, I was starting to actually make videos on YouTube again and actually become relevant. And as a primary Canucks fan, watching a team that didn't have the best track record, nor had the best odds at actually being a contender, I focused a lot on the prospects of the draft. So I talked about Dahlin a lot, I talked about Svechnikov, talked about Zadina. And Filip Zadina was a guy that I always had such a high level of faith in to become a legit NHL scoring threat. So now it's about 2 years removed from that, and we're still talking about Filip Zadina. Not in the context of how good he would be if the Vancouver Canucks drafted him, but in the context of what exactly is the ceiling for Filip Zadina, Detroit Red Wings prospect drafted 6th overall in the 2018 NHL entry draft. Now, we will say right off the bat here that my idea for what Zadina's potential is remains somewhat unchanged from what it was 2 years ago. Because 2 years ago, if you asked me what was Zadina like, what was his NHL ceiling, and how long would it take him to get there, I would say that Zadina was a lethal goal-scoring threat, a sniper in all classifications of the word. A guy who wasn't necessarily the best skater, nor was he the best defensive presence, but he was a guy who, in his prime in the NHL, could possibly hit upwards of 40-45 goals, win a Maurice Richard trophy once or twice in his career, and probably do it all by the time he's 27 or 28 years old. I was a big believer in the long-term potential of Filip Zadina. And now we're talking about him today because he just got sent back down to the Grand Rapids Griffins in the AHL after posting up 3 points in 7 NHL games played with the Detroit Red Wings. 3 of those assists came in a span of 4 games. Now, Zadina playing for the Red Wings this season has not necessarily been put in the best position. He just turned 20, and he was playing in the bottom 6 for the Red Wings. And the Red Wings, if you followed the NHL, you know that they're a pretty bad team. They're dead last, and already people are starting to talk about the 4th overall trade for the Detroit Red Wings, or the 1st overall trade, Alexis Lafreniere, and how that young... Okay, the fire alarm just went off, but that was a false alarm, so now I'm back here talking about the Red Wings once more. I don't know if you heard that in the background, but there was a little alarm ringing off, but Alexis Lafreniere is a topic that Detroit Red Wings fans have been bringing up, and overall, I think because I am a hockey YouTuber, I guess I'll cover some of that. Maybe do some why I wants, I guess, for other teams than the Vancouver Canucks, which I have been primarily attached to in the past. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then that's okay. We'll get into all of that at a later date, but the fact is, Detroit fans have been all over the idea of prospects and getting new ones and the new, really good, young, fresh talent coming out of the 2020 draft. People are already looking forward to that. The Red Wings are on pace to probably becoming one of the worst Red Wings teams in the history of that team, and honestly, I'm not surprised that Zadina was sent down. It's a good move, in my opinion, because the way that people are justifying this online that I've seen, not saying it's right or wrong, just saying that this is what people are saying, is that Steve Yzerman is not a dumb guy. I think we all know that Steve Yzerman is a pretty smart guy. He knows what he's doing, right? He built that franchise dynasty Tampa Bay Lightning. I shouldn't be throwing around the word dynasty all too loosely, but Yzerman knows how to make a hockey team, and Yzerman knows how to develop players. So the idea that I saw that most people were bringing up is that Yzerman would rather see Filip Zadina dominating the AHL, getting first-line minutes on the power play and on 5-on-5 on a team that has a higher likelihood of winning more games than the Red Wings do this season. Sure, Zadina is a player that could be in the NHL and could have a big impact in the NHL, but the fact that he doesn't require waivers and the fact that he's just being used in the bottom six with Helm and Franz Nielsen is a bad sign, and it's a bad step in the development path for a Filip Zadina. Which is why I don't think it's necessary to rush him into an NHL role. Sure, do people want to see Zadina in the top six on Detroit? Yes. That's something that we want to see because we know it's something that he can do. And we know it's something that, when given the opportunity, he'll probably produce at a much better rate than 3 assists in 7 games in the NHL. The guy only has 1 NHL goal, and that was scored last season. If he was given top 6 ice time on the Wings, he probably could have a few more goals by now if he spent the entire 7 games in the top 6. But the fact of the matter is here, Zadina is still only 20, which means that he has nothing to lose by going down to the AHL, get played 19, 20, 21 minutes a night on the first line, and score a heck of a lot of goals that way. So, to me, the long-term potential of Filip Zadina remains unchanged from what I thought 2 years ago. Because this player was not a player that people thought would step into the NHL immediately and score 25 to 35 goals. Some people did believe that because they were a big believer in the Zadina hype train, but his skating was always an issue that needed to be worked on before he could make the pro leagues, so I wasn't necessarily surprised that he didn't make the team, but at the same time I do remember saying 2 years ago that Zadina would be an NHL player next year and he would be a solidified middle six talent. But, you know, things can be wrong once in a while. But looking at it today, I still think Zadina can do it. I still think he has that potential, and I don't necessarily think that it's going to take all too long either. I could see Zadina being a 25 goal scorer in the NHL as soon as 3 years from now. All it takes is a little bit of patience and a little bit of Detroit Red Wings deployment that actually benefits the player. Now, all in all, Zadina getting sent down to the AHL does put this team at a little bit of a worse position than it was before. Zadina was a good player. Was he better than the Fabris or the AAs or the Manthas or the Larkins? You could argue not really, but the fact of the matter is Filip Zadina is probably better offensively and he's better at generating goals than any of the other guys you could have in the bottom six for the Red Wings, which means that the Red Wings just got a little bit worse. That gives them, in turn, a much better chance at losing more games and a much better chance at Alexis Lafreniere. So is this a win-win? A win for Zadina because he gets the ice time and he gets the production and he gets the actual spotlight in Grand Rapids, as well as a win for the Red Wings because it gives them a longer opportunity in order to get a great prospect at the 2020 draft? Maybe so. Maybe that's how it works, and overall, I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Wings continued like this. If they became hot all of a sudden, I would be very, very, very surprised, but for now it looks like we understand what Red Wings team we have. We understand what player we have with Filip Zadina, and we understand the deployment. So, in all, it's a win-win in my opinion because you do give yourself a better chance at drafting Lafreniere, but even if it's not Lafreniere, you get the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th overall pick. There are still so many amazing prospects in this year's draft, it's actually insane. Several prospects at or particularly maybe even above the level of a Capo Caco, and that just illustrates the depth in this year's NHL draft. So Red Wings fans, you may not be paying attention all too much this season, but I'll tell you what, pay attention to the prospects, because these young guys are going to become so good, and you're just giving yourself a better opportunity to snag them up. Zadina is one of them, and he's going to be really good by the time 2 years rolls around, and now's just not the time. Now's just not the time for the Red Wings, nor is it the time for him to really be good on the Red Wings. We'll have to wait a little bit more and see, but I still think he's got a heck of a lot of potential. Hope you enjoyed this video. So, 99, and bye.